Welcome to day 2 of healthy, natural, evidence-based ways to improve memory and prevent dementia. I'm your host, Susan Gibson, and today we're going to be talking about food. I know we have some new faces. It's great to see all of you here. And I'll do a brief review of yesterday, which was our introduction for the new people. I would love, after my review, if any of you want to share the things that were most impactful for you yesterday, I would love to hear from you. We are recording, but I am leaving the mute off so that we can have as natural a discussion as possible. So if it's noisy in your background, feel free to mute as needed. If that doesn't work, we can mute folks, but I would love to have you be able to just talk freely. So yesterday we looked at how devastating memory loss and dementia can be. And they not only impact the person with the dementia, but everyone around the person. And we looked at the fact that with the aging population, we're expected to have 3 times as many people with dementia by 2050. So this problem is only growing. We also saw that the pathology that in the brain, the dysfunction in the brain starts 20 to 40 years before the first memory loss symptom. So it's important not to wait for a crisis, not to wait until your memory's gone, but to invest in your brain health and your memory as soon as possible. And what you're doing in your 40s and 50s in terms of lifestyle significantly impacts your risk of getting dementia in your 60s and 70s. And 80s. So the healthcare field, and I as a healthcare provider am a part of this, we have not offered much hope on the topic of memory loss or dementia. And the prescription drugs that are approved don't do anything to address the underlying disease. But I am here today because of my own personal story and my own experience with dementia with my mother. And as I reviewed the literature and went to the medical meetings and the Alzheimer's Association meetings and talked with the thought leaders, I realized there are lots of things that can be done. They may not be in the domain of traditional medicine. They are natural, healthy things that have no downsides. So what we are doing this week is looking at specific recommendations and options for what can be done, things that improve your memory right now, as well as reduce your risk of having more severe memory loss in the future. And my personal story, I was very close to my mother, told her everything until the day she said, "Who are you?" and didn't remember who I was or anything about me. So I actually quit my job by training. I'm a pharmacist and Harvard MBA with 30 years developing products for pharmaceutical and medical device companies. And I focused on what can be done for memory loss and dementia. And I was a bit astounded to find that there's a lot that can be done. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 4 days. I hope you'll have a pen and paper handy because you may want to jot down specific recommendations. One of the things we talked about is that I can provide data and information, but I care about you and your future and your relationships. And I can provide the support and the info, but it's all about your motivation and your commitment to your future. So, excuse me, we've got some people coming in from the waiting room. And I apologize for the waiting room. We're not supposed to have one, but I hope everyone is in the meeting now.
Welcome.
So I have a passion for making a difference in your life, and I hope you'll partner with me. There are things that can be done that we're going to talk about that are easy, simple, achievable things to do that make a significant difference. So I would love to have folks share. Does anyone, we have quite a bit to cover today, but I would love to hear from anyone. What was most impactful for you yesterday? What'd you learn? Did it change anything?
I was impressed with the risk factors, that depression puts you at a 400% greater risk than if you didn't have depression. Cardiovascular disease, oh my golly, 300%. Amazing.
Yeah.
That was surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's our behavioral psychologist seeing the connection between, yes, some depression, that's a psychiatric issue. Yes. Yeah.
Had you ever heard of anything like homocysteine as a risk factor?
Yes.
The lipid? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned lipids yesterday, just in general.
Yes. 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 Any other thoughts? Was anyone else impacted? Change your thoughts? Are you more committed now?
Let me tell
Take
you,
care of your brain health?
after I took that test,
Yes.
that was an impact.
Really?
I didn't score real good. So I had a big old talk with myself.
Yeah.
What'd you score, Carolyn?
You don't want to know.
I got a 4.
I just scored 2.
On the brain test, Mike?
The brain test, I got a 4.
Yeah, I got a 2.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Misery loves.
Which brain test?
Morgan, did you do them? You're muted. I'm not hearing you.
Which brain test was that, Mike and Carolyn? There were 3 of them.
This was on the
The questionnaire or the?
questionnaire where you had to answer yes or no.
Yeah, the questionnaire I did as well.
Okay, so
That was
those
the
are
hardest.
habits. Let's,
Yeah.
why don't we even just look at those real quickly here?
One.
That was scary. Sobering.
I see a difference between now that I'm in quarantine and what I normally do, because there are a couple of ways that has adversely affected,
Yeah.
according to your questions.
Yes.
Well, I'm alone, live alone, so if the days I work 4 days a week, but the other 3 days I'm alone, I'm by myself the whole time, where normally I would be out and doing other things and have activities. And
Yes.
normally I would go to the fish counter at the grocery store and get fish once or twice a week,
Yes.
where now I'm not doing that. So there are 2 right there.
Well, we can brainstorm some things that can be done, because you're right, it's hard. Yes. Yeah. And the changes, yes, with being shelter in
I
place.
based that too on since Jean died. When Jean was alive, I made meals. We ate very healthy because she wanted green every night.
Mm-hmm.
She loved fish. We ate very good. But I'm basing it on a week. So I gave myself.
Someone needs to mute, please.
So anyway, it's crazy.
Yes. Yes. Carolyn was taking care of someone with dementia who just passed. So it is, yeah.
It's different when you're by yourself.
You're still worth investing in.
Yeah.
Even if it's just you.
Thank you.
Yes. So here's our homework from yesterday. I sent the 2 brain tests, and there were an additional optional 2. That was just to get an understanding of your baseline cognitive performance. It's good to track it every so often. If you're making significant changes, then you can track it more often. Those brain tests only take a couple of minutes, but that shows you, how's my brain functioning? The Brain Health Habits questionnaire is, how are my habits contributing to any issues that I may have? And that was a pretty simple questionnaire, but covers some of the main categories of what we're going to talk about for the rest of the week. Mm-hmm. Did anybody have questions on the brain test or the questionnaires? You were able to do those?
I have not gotten the brain tests, a link on those.
Okay, who said that?
Sharon.
I only got one. I only got one of the tests.
So the tests were on the, I sent a spreadsheet for tracking the results, and the
Yes.
tests are links on the spreadsheet. So there were actually a
Oh.
total of 4 different brain tests. You just click on it and it takes you to the website and you need to read. Those are just tests that are available publicly for free. You do the test and then write down your scores. But
Okay.
I will be sure that that Sharon gets the brain tests.
They were fun tests. I liked them.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing you can use. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, but those are the kinds of things you can do to kind of help keep your brain active as well.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. We'll talk more about how to do that tomorrow. Did anyone brainstorm ways to reduce your stress? Because your stress is a really personal thing that's going to be different for everyone. Did anyone have any good ideas or solutions that came from that?
I didn't get that far.
Okay. Well, we're going to
Well,
go into stress
But
more later.
I can say something.
Sure.
I don't know. Let's
Hi,
see.
Monica.
Here I am. Yeah. So in terms of brainstorming for stress, what is really helpful for me is to remember just to stop every couple of hours and do deep breathing.
Yes.
That really does significantly reduce my sympathetic tendencies and get me more into the parasympathetic. And if I do that, I notice it really makes a difference during the day. The thing is, I often forget. And the thing that helps me actually is to set alarms, little dings every couple of hours. And I have my favorite apps also to choose from when I do this. So that's probably one of the main ways. That and taking breaks during the day is really important. Walking around, even if it's just for like 2 minutes. If I have 2 minutes, I go out and I walk around and I see the beauty outside and I see the colors, and it really shifts my being, it shifts my thoughts, it shifts my emotions. So
excellent. Wow, Monica, those are fantastic. You're
Thanks.
diligent about it. And it
Monica,
makes those
can
are
you
great
share those
suggestions.
apps?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, if you can send them to me, I can send them to folks.
Okay.
We'll have a list of resources
will.
at the end. That's great.
I will do that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So just a little review. My proprietary FAST formula are the 6 main categories of actions that can be taken that help improve your memory and reduce the risk of dementia. F is for food. That's what we're going to talk about today. There's a number of subcategories of recommendations for what to do in the food category. And then tomorrow we'll talk about activity, and we'll get to reducing stress, increasing sleep, treating diseases, and thoughts later in the week. And this also, again, that's the agenda. We started out with our introduction, hopefully a motivation to empower you to invest in your brain. And now we're looking at specific actions that can be taken, and today specifically from a food standpoint.
Is someone typing? It's kind of disconcerting to hear that. Am I the
Yeah,
only one hearing?
if someone could mute, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. So how many of you like sweets?
I'm terrible about it.
Yes. Well, there's a reason that we like them, and the more that you have them, the more that you tend to like them. So what happens when you eat sugar? Many of you know that your blood sugar levels increase right away, which may give you energy and give you a bit of a sugar high, but your sugar levels then drop down to lower levels than before you ate the sugar. So you get what's called hyperglycemia initially, but then in an hour or a few hours, you're likely to feel hungry again, tired, maybe a little sad or fatigued, which just primes wanting to eat some more. So that's one of the things that primes it from a blood sugar level. Sugar actually is very detrimental to your brain. It's also difficult for the rest of your body. It's hard on the blood vessels, which includes the blood vessels in the brain. It damages the nerves and neurons. It causes inflammation, and we talked yesterday about the fact that inflammation is one of the main things that revs up the pathology of memory loss and dementia. And there's actually data to show that eating a lot of sugar in your diet reduces the growth of new neurons and actually leads to the brain shrink that we talked about yesterday and to memory issues.
And is actually physically addictive.
Absolutely. Very physically addictive. Very physically addictive. Yep. That's right, Sharon. And those two main things there's tolerance as well as addiction. So when you eat the sugar, it does stimulate the reward system in your brain. You do release dopamine, which is kind of a feel-good neurotransmitter, which makes you want more. But you need more and more to get that feel-good feeling. That's called tolerance, when you have to have more and more of something to get the same effect. And you have more and more cravings, and it is very addicting. So you want to eat more, which just increases the cycle. So if you eat sugar, you're going to want sugar. And if you get off of sugar, you want it less. I actually there's a study, a recent study where they asked people how much they wanted to eat high calorie snack foods when they were feeling hungry, and then ask them again right after they've had a full meal. And the people who regularly ate high sugar diets rated their desire for high sugar foods higher in both situations, but interestingly, they were even more hungry for snack foods when they were full. And I actually experienced that myself 13 years ago. I was doing lots of business dinners with physicians, and I would come home from a huge meal. I was stuffed, and I would walk through the door and go, what can I eat? What can I eat? What can I eat? And I don't even think I could fit anything more in, but because I'd had dessert, your brain is just really desiring the sugar. We are eating more and more sugar as a society over time. It is shocking how much our food habits rely on sugar these days. Americans eat 47 times more sugar than we ate 300 years ago. It's become a big staple part of our diet. So we are going to review some of the data. Again, I know I'm a data person. That's part of what convinced me of the unmet need here, but I will try and review these primarily in terms of what does it mean to you and what's the impact of this. So there have been studies that show that sugar itself, and you see this in kids, it hinders attention, focus, and concentration. We're pretty aware of that. Many of us have experienced that, even just short term. And here's what Sharon was referring to. There's a study that shows that sweet foods are even more addictive than cocaine. That is quite an addiction.
Yep.
Even 1 week of eating sugar showed memory deficits on memory tests. And we know sugar has an immediate impact on the brain itself. We talked yesterday about some diseases that are risk factors. It also impacts a lot of these risk factors because high sugar diets, you tend to gain weight. diabetes is an issue, obesity is potentially an issue, and all those also rev up the pathology of the memory loss itself. Sugary drinks are shocking. If you take a Coca-Cola, about a third of the can, if you just poured sugar in there, almost a third of the can would be solid sugar. When it's melted, one Coca-Cola has more sugar than you're supposed to have in an entire day with all that you eat. So avoiding sugary drinks is really important. And we mentioned a little bit yesterday, obviously eating sugar increases your risk of getting diabetes, and Alzheimer's is actually called diabetes of the brain because diabetics have an increased risk of Alzheimer's, they have increased memory loss. There's quite a few similarities between the two.
I saw a graphic that compared soda with how many donuts and dozens that it equaled. And Bill came in when we were with my mom, and he'd stopped at Grader's and brought a couple of coffee cakes and such. We said, "Oh, what'd you bring there, Bill?" He said, "Oh, a 6-pack of Coke."
Oops.
The amount of sugar in all of the baked goods that he brought was probably not even 6 cans of Coke.
That's a really good point. And you don't really realize you're getting the sugar when you have it in sodas.
Liquid form.
Yeah. So what can you do? It's really important to read the labels on your products and see how much sugar is included. I don't know how many of you have ever looked at the label on yogurts. It's very difficult. Yogurt seems like a healthy kind of food, but it's very difficult to find a yogurt that isn't stuffed full of sugar. Some of them have, again, 29 grams of sugar, more than your entire daily intake of sugar should be. High fructose corn syrup is among one of the worst options. And you can eat fruit instead. The American Heart Association recommends that men don't eat more than 38 grams of sugar a day and women 25 grams. On average in the US, we eat about 71 grams. So we're eating 2 to 3 times as much sugar as is recommended for us. Has anyone actually tried to get off sugar? Because the impact on your health and on your brain is one thing, but the impact on the way you feel is a whole nother topic. Has anyone noticed a difference? Have they fasted from sugar?
I did the whole 30.
Oh, wow.
Cut everything out and did full 30 days. And friends of mine that did it said at the end they had that bite of cake and said, ugh, it just doesn't taste good anymore. So I was at a graduation party, and it was after my 30 days, and went, okay, good. I'm going to have this bite of cake, and it's going to prove I don't want it anymore. And I had that bite of cake and went, oh, wow, this is really good. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah, even a bite, it does make you want more.
Yeah, exactly.
But you feel so much better if you can remove sugar from your diet.
Yes.
Most people can feel the difference in many different ways, in energy, in just their quality of life. So there's additional reasons as well as for your brain and your brain health, because sugar is really pretty toxic to your brain.
This is really good to hear because I went off sugar a number of years ago. It's hard to do, but I had to because I was eating a lot of it, and I have now, used to be hypoglycemia, and now it's kind of turned the corner and I have blood sugar issues. Mm-hmm. So it does feel good to be off sugar, but I do miss it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I miss those chocolates.
That addiction. Yes. Yeah.
Oh man, the taste is just hard to beat.
Yeah. But there's consequences.
But it's really interesting because fruit then, I don't know where you,
what
category you put fruit in, but it tastes so much better. Everything else tastes so much better and fresher and more natural.
Yeah. Our bodies were designed to eat natural plant-based foods. In fact, until 100 years ago, most people worked on farms. They lived on farms and grew their own food, which is part of the reason that we're seeing such a change in the food that we're eating, because when we're in cities, usually when you're trying to do something quickly, it's harder to do natural things, and it's easy to just pick up something that's often sugary and not so good for you. Yeah, but there are a lot of benefits if you can get over that addiction.
I just have noticed that I've been off of sugar for a few years, and when I slip, I notice a huge difference. I mean, if I just even have something with higher sugar concentration, my brain gets foggy. I don't feel well. I feel hungover the next day. So, yeah, it's made a big difference to get off of sugar.
That's really good.
Huge difference.
The effects are observable immediately. Again, could someone mute?
Oh, sorry.
Effects are observable right away. So it is something, it's a bit of a challenge, but for those of you who've done a good job, that's awesome. Okay, the next recommendation is eating vegetables, and vegetables are quite amazing. They are healthy for your heart, they are healthy for your gut, and they're healthy for your brain. And you've probably heard about the heart-brain connection because they're very linked, and the gut-brain connection. They have fiber that's helpful for keeping you regular and lots of nutrients. And they have actually been shown to help slow cognitive decline, which is amazing because, again, the medical community does not believe that there's anything to slow cognitive decline, but eating your vegetables will do it. They actually can ward off toxins. So if you have toxins, if you're aware that you have toxins going on in your body, vegetables are a great way to help cleanse that. They're potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidants, and they do actually have been shown to protect the nerves and reduce the death of the nerve cells. They also increase the blood flow to your brain, and we'll see that this is a linear relationship here. The more vegetables you eat, the better off you are. They've actually done tests, and there's a number of different aspects of cognitive function that are improved when you eat vegetables. Cognition is a very complicated thing with lots of different ways that you can think about. Is it how fast you process? Is it short-term memory, long-term memory? And vegetables impact almost all of them. But you don't have to eat a lot to make a difference. 1.3 servings per day of vegetables yielded cognitive performance that was equivalent to someone 11 years younger. So they know that cognition declines over time, and they know what kind of performance you typically have at a certain age. 11 years younger in your brain health is phenomenal. And 1.3 servings of vegetables a day is very, very doable. A salad and a side vegetable. The effects happen right away. You can see improvements in depression as well as in brain function, and those benefits are maintained over time. And if you eat more vegetables, a high vegetable diet, like 5 servings of fruits and 5 servings of vegetable in 16 different studies, showed that it reduced the number of chronic diseases. It actually reduced the mortality rate, the number of people that died. There were improvements on brain tests and cognitive performance. It delayed or prevented cognitive decline and reduced the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. That is staggering from eating vegetables. That's like every beneficial effect you want to have, eat a lot of vegetables. And 1 serving is equivalent to a cup of raw or cooked vegetables and 2 cups of salad or leafy greens. So again, these are very doable with pretty dramatic effects. The high intake group in another study, so again, that's like the 5 servings a day, showed a 38 to 51% reduction in the risk of dementia. Huge, huge, cutting your risk in half. Interestingly, the benefits are the most pronounced in people who have Alzheimer's disease or who are elderly. So if you know someone who's over 80, it's even more important for them to be eating their vegetables. They have a pretty dramatic benefit. So I have a list here of vegetables. Again, my objective is to encourage you to actually make improvements in your lifestyle, even if they're small improvements. And we know that there's some things we're willing to do and some things that we're probably not willing to do. So pick things that you actually will be able to continue to do long term. But I would love to have people pick a few vegetables that you like, and I'll send this list to you in an email afterwards, and actually commit to eating more of them. Pretty simple and pretty doable. There's got to be some of them that you like. Now here's a few vegetables. Corn and potatoes are vegetables, but they don't really count in the vegetable count because they're high glycemic vegetables. They turn pretty quickly into sugar. So they're not as bad as eating highly processed sweet foods. But
what about sweet potatoes? Does that
well, sweet potatoes are actually better than potatoes, but they still do have a pretty high glycemic index.
Okay.
And the amount that you cook your vegetables makes a difference as well. Ideally, you want to eat them raw or pretty lightly cooked. Cooking them more does increase the glycemic load or the amount that they're releasing sugar. The only exception to that is spinach, which cooking spinach actually releases more of the nutrients. But for everything other than spinach, it's best to cook them pretty al dente. But the most important thing is eat them. If you need to cook them more to be willing to eat them, then do what you need to do. But vegetables are huge. Any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, avocado. I didn't see avocado on there.
It's a fruit.
Oh, it's a fruit.
Yeah, it grows on a tree. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Stephanie. So the recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control is to have 2 to 3 cups of vegetables a day, but only 1 in 10 of us is actually meeting that. And as we saw, the high vegetable intake folks, which is 5 servings a day, they actually showed in studies that it reduces the number of heart attacks, stroke, and cancer. That's a lot better than having a drug. There's no downsides, and it's addressing multiple different diseases as well as improving your brain function, which you can see pretty quickly. So there's lots of different ways, whether you're stir frying, putting it in soup, doing salads. You really want 1/3 of what you eat to be vegetables. Okay, somebody mentioned good fats, eating your fish, and yeah, that was Sharon. You can't go to the market as easily to get the fish. Another thing that is really important is to get your DHA. So I don't know if anyone has ever called you a fathead, but if they did, they were right. We are all fatheads. 60% of our brain is made up of fat. And the #1 fat in our brain is DHA. And DHA starts declining from age 20 on, and you can't make any more. So you have to consume it. You have to eat it. And your brain really needs DHA. It's important for the lining of the neurons, the integrity of the neurons in the brain. When DHA decreases, you see memory having issues. You need it for your memory. And the DHA decreases significantly in people that have dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And they have actually shown that giving DHA, replacing the DHA, can improve memory and cognitive function. But the low levels of DHA also result in the beta amyloid plaques and loss of neurons and the shrinking of the brain that we talked about as the classic pathology associated with memory loss. So here's the data. There's tons of data. I just picked a few items here, but DHA improves a whole bunch of different cognitive functions across the boards. It's quite beneficial. And again, in the big cardiovascular studies, you do see that there's a correlation. As DHA goes down, you see more brain decline. In that study, they separate out groups by who has the highest DHA levels. They do look at quartiles. And the highest DHA levels had a 47% reduction in dementia risk. Again, cutting in half. This is huge for those who have had the highest DHA levels. In other studies, they showed even greater effects, a 65% reduction in dementia, 60 to 72% reduction in Alzheimer's disease. These are dramatic results, way more powerful if they do have a pharmaceutical that's approved. This is pretty powerful data. And I will talk about some studies. I don't want to bore you too much with details. When I say N equals, that's the number of patients in the study. But they looked at a rather large study in patients who already had some memory loss, and they improved their brain tests equivalent to 7 years lower in terms of cognitive function or cognitive age. So that's back again to your cognition is declining as you get older naturally. If you start out with a lower cognition, it's probably going to decline even further. Not everyone with memory loss progresses to dementia, but everyone who gets to dementia had memory loss. It is a progression. So 7 years lower cognitive age, substantive data. Again, something pretty easy to do, very achievable, and very powerful. So the Centers for Disease Control recommend that you have 2 to 3 fish meals a week or the equivalent. In general, natural healthy foods are better than taking something like a supplement or another way to get it. But there's one risk with the fish. It's great to eat fish, but try and identify fish types and fish sources that are low in mercury, because there's actually an early onset Alzheimer's that is a result of toxins like mercury toxicities. So you can take a supplement. This is a great place. If you don't like fish and you're not getting enough healthy fish, this is a very easy place to replace with a supplement. Any questions on DHA and your good oils? Do these things seem doable?
Yes. I think your brain booster is awesome.
Thank you.
Giving me all that DHA, right?
Yes, that's right. It is.
Yes.
Floridae brain booster is full of DHA. For this reason, the data are.
Yep. Clear. I have 2 little ones waking up.
Oh.
Right. I have 2 little ones waking up, so I have to cut out, but I will watch the end tonight, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
So I kind of cheat and just now, granted, I like sardines.
Yeah.
But I kind of cheat and I just do like a can of sardines here and there. I'll do it, add it to my lunch, or and sardines are great because they're really low in mercury and but some people don't like them. Anchovies also.
Yep.
Anyways, there's yeah, lots of good fish. You really got to watch the mercury though.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Monica. Yeah, that's right. Those are great fish if you like them. That's great. Good health habits, Monica. So another topic is how processed is the food that you're eating. So this isn't even just what you're eating. I mean, you can eat a baked potato or French fries or some kind of processed chip that has practically no nutrients in it. Those are different forms of potato, but the level of processing is actually a big issue. Processing does remove a lot of the nutrition, and processed foods, in order to package them, they want to increase the shelf life. So they put in lots of preservatives, which are usually sugar and salt and fats. So processed foods are not good for you. And the more processed it is, typically the worse it is. So there's some forms of processing. Actually, freezing and freeze drying are a way to keep a food preserved. That's a very healthy way, a more healthy way than many of the packaged foods. But 90% of the added sugar in our diets is coming from the processed foods. So Americans are eating a lot of this. Again, some of this is a time crunch. Hi, Susan, good to see you. But processed foods do increase leaky gut, back to the inflammation and oxidation, and they have been associated with a number of diseases like hypertension and diabetes and obesity, as well as impacts on the brain. So it's really important to read your labels. Everything is required now to have the nutritional facts stated. So look at the amount of sugar that's being added. There's some more studies here similar to the one that I mentioned before, that you're eating processed foods, that increases the overall snack intake. And these ultra processed foods, so many of the packaged foods have ingredients that are really long words. They're things that are synthesized in the lab. They're not even what we call whole food or real food anymore. And the ultra processed foods, the regulatory agencies are defining these now, and the ultra processed foods are mostly artificial ingredients and not real food. And in these huge meta studies, they're seeing that over half of our food intake, our caloric intake, is coming from these ultra processed foods. So again, you will probably see changes in your brain function pretty quickly just from eating fresh fruits and vegetables, healthy whole foods, instead of the high sugar and processed foods. Any questions about that? So someone asked about fruit, and berries are fantastic. I mean, it's pretty amazing the amount of data on berries by themselves. They contain some good nutrients, the flavonoids and anthocyanins, but they have been shown in a number of studies to be pretty beneficial. And these are some pretty staggering results. This is a huge study, this first one, 16,000 people followed for 20 years. And 2 servings a week of berries delayed memory decline to 0.5 years. So who thinks that you could actually eat 2 servings of berries a week? That's not a hard thing to do. And it's making a difference. Very doable, very achievable results. There was another study on strawberries, and they reduced dementia by 24% and reduced cognitive decline by over 30%. This is unbelievably strong data from a few servings of berries. And the third one here is in people who have mild cognitive impairment. So they've already got some memory loss. They were giving the kind of the key ingredient in the berries. And they also saw improvements on memory tests, executive function tests, improving short-term scores. So very doable, profound effects. One way to remember this is that they look kind of like little brains. The little raspberries look kind of like a brain. So raspberries, blueberries, they're good for your brain because they look like brains. And the next item looks even more like a brain. Walnuts, wonderful, healthy brain food. Your berries and your walnuts. Some other nuts too, almonds and hazelnuts to some extent. But these nuts have been shown to prevent the brain shrinking and kind of dying to some extent and prevent memory loss. And walnuts by themselves, this is amazing that there are numerous studies for one ingredient. One of the studies was a 2-year-long study, walnuts and healthy aging. So it did not show the results that they had hoped. The imaging of the brain did show that there were more neurons, the neurons were firing better, there was a better network of the neurons, so that's what you want to see. They didn't show statistically significant differences in the brain test, but other tests have, like the UCLA test, showed improvements in 4 different cognitive measures from eating walnuts. And they've tried to do proof studies. Are these actually making the difference in animals? That's hard to do in humans, but they actually, in some animal studies, were able to reverse memory loss and create new neurons in the hippocampus, which is an important part of the brain for memory. Green tea is another beneficial thing to be consuming. It has L-theanine in it, which is a really important supplement, and walnuts and tea together showed improvements better than either one of them alone. So there's lots of different options here, very doable, and some pretty impressive data on the differences that can be made. I get lots of questions about coconut oil. I have heard many stories of individuals who improved with coconut oil. Some friends' parents swear by it, that if she wasn't getting her coconut oil, her cognition was so bad within a couple days that she couldn't function. It is an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. It is not as powerful as many of the others, like DHA is more than 50 times more powerful than the coconut oil. But there have been some studies that have shown that 40 mils of coconut oil just for 3 weeks improved a couple of measures of cognition, and then a few others improved some. So it's worth a try. May not be quite as powerful as some other things, but I know some people that swear by it. So what if you really want to invest in your brain health and you want to do a diet, not just change a few of your foods here and there, but you want to really go for it because you care about your future, you care about your relationships, and you want to keep your brain healthy? The best diet is the MIND diet, which is designed specifically for neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and preventing them. It is a combination of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. So the Mediterranean diet isn't really a specific diet. It's eating the kinds of foods that the people eat in the countries around the Mediterranean. There's some differences between what Italians eat versus what Greeks eat, but the basic concept is still true, that you're eating lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, fresh fish, and unsaturated fats. The Mediterranean diet has been shown to lower Alzheimer's risk by 35%. The DASH diet was designed to be able to get people off of antihypertensive drugs, because if you're eating the healthier foods, and actually Susan has an experience with this, if you're eating the healthier foods, you can reduce your hypertension and get rid of your hypertensive meds. And so the MIND diet is kind of a combination of those. It has the best results, showed 50%, 54% reduction in Alzheimer's risk. The keto diet has shown some benefits. It doesn't have quite as strong a data as the MIND diet, but it also can be effective for neurodegeneration. There are things online. You can get information on the MIND diet to be able to follow it on a regular basis, the MIND diet, even if you only did it part-time, people didn't do the whole thing, they weren't eating all of what they were doing half of what the diet recommended they should do, they still lowered their Alzheimer's risk by 35%. So it's a fabulous diet, worth investing in. And diet does work both for prevention and for treatment. In Canada, they're trying to figure out what is the ideal foods. This is very similar to what we talked about, lots of leafy green vegetables, blueberries, fish, and taking it for only 4 months. Folks were 9 years younger on their cognitive tests, and if they took it for 4 years, they had essentially no memory loss. So pretty powerful. This is my favorite here. I don't know if you saw this in the news. It is just one person, but this mom was 82 years old. Her son had no one but her, and she got dementia, didn't recognize her son, became hospitalized. She was agitated and was attacking the nurses and accusing the nurses and calling the police. So she was having some of the hallucinations and things that are common of the dementia. And her son said, I don't have anyone but my mom. We've got to do something. And she went on a new diet. Lots of blueberries, walnuts, and vegetables. And she did some brain exercises. And in 3 months, that is not a lot of changes, she had dementia. 3 months of diet change, and she did not have dementia anymore. She was alert and engaged. She was able to care for herself, and they said she looked 10 years younger. So it's possible. There is hope. And again, you don't have to make massive changes to see improvements in your brain function. We did mention a little bit about supplements, especially in terms of DHA, but supplements are a great way to get the nutrients that you're not getting. Even if you're eating healthy, you probably still need supplementation. It's important to read the labels. There's a huge spectrum here of cheap, low quality things from third world countries. I've seen some brain supplements and I looked at their ingredients and they have a little bit of caffeine and one little ingredient. So it's not going to do anything to help you. You might feel a little perkier, but you can get your caffeine in other places. It's not really helping your brain. I do have a supplement that I made, and Sharon mentioned it, Larry and Richard mentioned yesterday. It's not my goal to talk about my supplement here, but I will be mentioning it at the end of the 5th day because it has shown good results and it is certainly very relevant. But find a good high quality supplement that will really help you. Look for some research. And if you want to check out Glory Day, again, it's a mega supplement. It is a great option, but supplementing is so easy, such low-hanging fruit. If you can't just take a couple supplements in the morning, that's about as easy as it gets.
Ask a question?
Yes, please.
My wife handed me 2 things that she bought. One is periwinkle 900 milligrams. What do you think?
Periwinkle. I have not looked at periwinkle. Let me get back to you on that, Larry.
Okay, the other one is called, oh boy, phosphodiesolarine.
Oh, not phosphatidyl, phosphodisolarine.
It's really long. Haven't heard of it. Okay.
I don't know I don't know that one. Phosphodisolarine.
It's phosphodiesolarine.
Oh, phosphatidyl. Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's my best pronunciation.
Let me, how about I get back to you on that in one of our future classes? I know from a time standpoint, we have some meeting that have people that have another meeting, but those are great questions, Larry. Thank you for bringing them. We'll look at that some more. So we only have a couple minutes left. What would help motivate you to commit to improving your eating habits? How can I support you? How can the group encourage you?
For me, just this data is phenomenal. And I used to eat a lot of processed foods and salads along with salads. And I started getting away from processed foods. I was a Diet Coke addict, and just getting off of that stuff. And I do take Glory Day. Been taking it religiously for about 5 months now, I think. I'm just feeling better getting off the processed foods. I eat a lot of berries.
Wonderful. Good job, Susan.
Part of the part of why I switched to berries is lower glycemic content, less sugar than melons and that sort of thing, because I love fruit. So I gave up melons and switched to berries, and I totally love it. And sometimes put whipped cream on for dessert, but just changing my eating habits. I feel a lot better, and I've been taking Glory Day, and I just thought I'm going to be a rough case with getting some memory back, like seriously, because I can't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday. And I've really noticed improvement. So I'm just going to stay on the path and try to do better after this, because you just gave some great tips, and I could not get in initially, so I'm gonna
apologize
tonight. No, it was me, and then I walked away saying, oh rats, I'll have to listen to it on YouTube. But I don't want to take up all the conversation, but I've seen a difference, and I just got such great pointers, Susan, so thanks for doing this.
Good. Awesome. Thank you, Susan. That's so encouraging. Awesome. And great comment on the fruit, which I meant to make, and that we haven't mentioned, is that fruit in general is a good whole food, but you do need to be careful because many of the types have pretty high sugar levels. But for your brain, that's awesome. You've been learning and implementing all the right things, and I know you work out a lot. But yeah, berries are the best, and you got to be careful with the sugar levels on some of the others. Awesome. Great comments, and so exciting and heartwarming to hear folks that are doing well on Glory Day Brain Booster. So as we discussed before, our thoughts, we're going to talk about thoughts on the last day, but our thoughts are important. Our words are powerful. So if you're up for repeating this with me, I think many of us have said negative things to our brains when we get frustrated because we can't remember or we forgot someone's name. And it does have power. Your declarations do have power. So if you want to repeat this out loud with me, this is a great way to encourage our brains. And we'll talk more about the concept and the data on that later. So if you want to repeat with me, I value my brain. I thank my brain for all it has done for me. I choose to invest in my health and my brain health. I will take action to ensure that I keep my memory.
Amen.
All right, and we're doing homework because, again, I care, and being engaged, paying attention, looking at your habits are great. And the more that you can commit to making some changes and have folks to hold you accountable, that's great. The homework for tomorrow is to select 3 vegetables you like and write down that you plan to eat more of them. Find some processed food that you have around the house or even things in the refrigerator and look at the labels and see what you learn about what has high sugar content and what doesn't, and pick things that work for you. But I would encourage you to pick 3 diet changes. You're gonna eat more vegetables, more berries. What are you gonna do? And again, write them down, because declaring them and writing them, it does have power. Our brains know that we committed to that. And I know we're out of time, so thank you so much for coming. It's great to see all of you, and we'll see you back at noon tomorrow to talk about activity. Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Susan. Very good. Thank you
very much.
Thank you. We'll send you emails to follow up.